Dream. This is
awesome. The best time I've ever had in my life. Hey, we jam. Hey, 3-3 on 3, 1, 2, 3, 3-3.
There we go. Against all odds, the Regina Red Sox are your 2025 WCBL champions after a great run in the playoffs, some gritty wins, and a whole lot more. We're going to dive into that as we get into our final episode of the WCBL report for this season, and we'll bring in Joe McFarland, who's been with me every step of the way. Joe, a wild finish to a season, probably one not many people had on their bingo cards, at least going into the playoffs, but the Regina Red Sox come out on top on the road in Sylvan Lake against a very, very good Gulls team who was undefeated throughout the playoffs until Game 2 in the finals. What can you tell me about this great run by the Red Sox?
Well, to your point, remember back when the playoffs started and you and I said, listen, the Regina Red Sox, who knows what they're going to bring to the table? I mean, and it was interesting talking to some of the players after that after the second round, because they said, listen, we started to believe in ourselves after we took 2 of 3 from Saskatoon, but not everybody else was sort of believing us yet because we didn't know they had so much roster turnover as a big issue for the team. What's that pitching staff going to look like? Who's gonna really spearhead the starting rotation? What are the bats going to do? All that kind of thing. And they roll through Medicine Hat, then they take out Saskatoon in 3, and then you've got a team that's been as hot as the Sylvan Lake Gulls had been through the last 35 games, as mentioned, 26-9 through the last 35 regular season games, 4-0 in the playoffs, and then they lose Game 1 in Regina. And you're going, okay, unfriendly confines of Gull Stadium for a couple of games, and away you go. And it was just a great run by the Regina Red Sox, and above all odds.
Yeah, so we're going to have a look at each of the highlight packs from these games. We'll start with Game 1 in Regina. Of course, like you mentioned, Regina getting here, taking on Medicine Hat in the first round, getting through them, getting through Saskatoon, the top-ranked team in round 2, and then seeing the Gulls, who, like we talked about earlier, were the hottest team in the league at this time. And it didn't look great for the Sox after Game 1, but it was a really interesting way to end Game 1. Can you just kind of walk me through what you saw in Game 1 in Regina?
The first storyline of that Game 1 had to have been the starting pitching. Josh Tucker, who was warming up, getting ready for that Okotoks finale, and he goes 6 strong, 7 strikeouts, just does what Josh Tucker does, as he's the only member of the 300K club in the WCBL's history. On the other side, Xander Udi Sanger said, I can do that too. And the Okanagan College kid, Regina product, did exactly that. And it was funny afterwards, walking through the concourse of Gull Stadium after Game 3. And who's hugging that trophy? The same guy you see in that intro video, Xander Udi Sanger, who said, I'm not letting go of this thing. He had a ton of pride that went into winning that one. But the storyline was that thing went through 9 complete, 2-2 tie, very, very tight ball game. And what ends it? A stolen base by Michael Quick by the Sylvan Lake Gulls on a double steal, something that they've been kind of playing with and toying with all playoffs, was you get runners on first and third, you steal second. Well, nobody really thought to check down the runner at third, and in comes Michael Quick, and quick as he is, managed to get across the board and scores that winning run. What a final to start that Game 1.
Yeah, Michael Quick lived up to his name on that one for sure. Definitely turned on the Jets for that one.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, for a lot of people who are watching online, unfortunately, there was a little bit of issues with the online broadcast. So apologies on behalf of the league for what happened at the end of that one. I know the Red Sox felt really upset about it, and it was tough. But at the same time, that kind of stuff happens. It was out of our control and out of our broadcast partners' control as well. And they made the call to shut down the stream, unfortunately. But for those in attendance, and it was packed in Regina, they got quite a show. And despite them going home not happy because of the result, it was still a great way to kind of kick off the series as we went into Game 2 back in Sylvan Lake. And this one was just as dramatic, just as interesting, but a great way for the Sox to kind of show, hey, we're not laying down, and especially scoring 6 runs to take the lead in the 9th inning. They weren't going down with a fight, and that was a big statement, I think, and probably pushed a lot of that momentum into Game 3. But we'll have a look here at the highlights as we kind of show you just the ending of the game here. But wow, what a way for them to kind of put their mark on this series at the end of this game.
It's amazing that the game came down to one final strike. And that's all it was. The Sylvan Lake Gulls had the trophy virtually on the way out onto the field. And somehow, some way, the Regina Red Sox managed to push a couple across with 1 strike left. I think it was a 1-2 count against, I can't remember exactly who it was, but it was just one of those things where the inning snowballed. And the Regina Red Sox had made sort of their business this playoff of being able to take advantage of a missed opportunity here and there. And that's exactly what happened there. And you go into the top of the 9th up 6-4 going, hey, we've got our lockdown guy in Mick McClaskey. And things just spiraled, unfortunately, for the Sylvan Lake Gulls. And as a result, you end up with they did storm back. And it was interesting. There was actually a moment in time there in the bottom of the 9th. Sylvan Lake had the bases loaded. And their relievers managed to pin things down, because there was a moment where I went, could we see a grand slam to walk off Game 2 and win a championship for the Sylvan Lake Gulls? It came this close.
Yeah.
And the Regina Red Sox somehow managed to squeak by and set up for an unbelievable Game 3.
And if I remember correctly, I was watching along, and it was Simon Baker, I think, who came up to bat.
Mm-hmm.
Or he was at least one of the at-bats with the bases loaded. And I was like, is he going to hit another grand slam? Because obviously, remember, in the previous round, he hit one. So it was, it was quite a game. And again, a great way to show off the product in front of a great crowd at Gulls Field. Not sending the crowd home happy, but at the same time, an unbelievable display of baseball. And like I said, it pushed, I think, a little bit of momentum into Game 3 as we take a look at Game 3 now. The series sealing game, of course, it was going to be do or die one way or the other. The Red Sox got out to a 3-0 lead after 3 innings, though. Like I said, maybe taking a little bit of that momentum from the previous game. They did lose the lead, though, but did come back late again. But how much, Joe, do you think that coming back late in Game 2 really played a factor in coming back late in Game 3?
It was amazing because I think both dugouts felt it for various reasons, right? And it was interesting watching the momentum swings in this game because, as you mentioned, it's 3-0 after 3, and that crowd in Sylvan Lake went silent. They just were kind of beside themselves. Then that 5th inning rolls around, and Sylvan's bats start to figure things out a little bit, and they put up the 3 spot to tie the game. The buzz in the crowd. I was actually doing some color commentary with Cale Clark, who did an outstanding job of that Game 3 play-by-play wise. And I actually said, like, you can viscerally feel how much the energy in that diamond changed in that inning. And then the next half inning, Regina scores a couple, and you're up 5-3. And actually Sylvan Lake went up 4-3 at one point on a wild play in its own. And you're thinking, okay, this is crazy. And then Regina scores 2, and it's 5-4, and the crowd goes quiet again. And they got loud again because there's opportunities. The Sylvan Lake Gulls had runners on first and second with 2 out in the bottom of the 9th, a chance to tie it. And you mentioned his name earlier. Simon Baker comes up swinging on the first pitch, and he hit a laser beam that Ian Montz managed to track down in the outfield. And the Regina Red Sox, as you saw, are WCBL champions.
Yeah, wild finish, and a big congratulations to everybody. Of course, instantly a lot of minds, at least here in Regina, went to Jesse Lubanicki, the player who passed away on his way back. They dedicated the season to him, and what a special way to cap it all off, going against all odds, just like Jesse would have been. He was cheering for them, he was watching, he was with them the whole time, and to see them pull it all off in the way that they did, a couple of comeback wins on the road, you gotta love it. There's so much special meaning to that. And the saying comes, and Bryce, maybe you have this one. I don't know if you do, but how can you not be romantic about baseball? I mean, there's so much to it. You don't have that one? Thought you might. Put that one in the queue for next time. But there's so much to baseball that comes down to just minuscule decisions, minuscule timings, minuscule, all these small little things that, accumulate to huge moments. And for a team like the Red Sox, who basically, I'll say it right now, they were probably counted out going into the playoffs. And for them to come all the way, beat the teams that they did, and then, they beat, Joe, remember, they beat the two teams that set the last two regular season wins records, Sylvan Lake and Saskatoon, both in this back-to-back. So for them to go through all of that and dedicate the season to Jesse, I think that just means even that much more to all of it. And congratulations to all the players. Congratulations to everybody involved in the behind the scenes, both at the field, setting up the team, recruiting, all that stuff. It all goes hand in hand, and you can't have one without the other. So congrats. A guy like Gary Brotzel comes to mind. I know he puts in hours and hours of countless work, and big congratulations to him and everybody involved, of course. But Joe, obviously that led to naming the series MVP, and there was a little bit of debate on our end, you and me, and a couple guys that we work with here, thinking it might have gone one way, but at the end of the day, it was the hometown hero, Brady Bye, who ended up getting the MVP nod for the series. And it was a great series. I'm not going to take anything away from him, but we'll talk about what the debate was in a moment. But Brady Bye, let's start with him. Probably one of the more valuable players in the league this season, given the roster turnover that went down with the Red Sox and him taking over as full-time catcher kind of midway through the season. And the numbers that he put up after that and into the playoffs, huge.
Well, and the 10 RBI led the league during the playoffs, right? And that was one of the big deciding factors, I think, is a guy who had a hit in every single playoff game. He had an impact in every single game. And it's not one series or another series. And that's one of the challenges with calling it, because you could have named a few guys on the Regina Red Sox, to be honest. I look at Matthew Fox, I thought had a phenomenal playoff run defensively and offensively. I thought Rafael Jackson, particularly in the final, was really, really good as well. They had a pitching staff that did really well. We'll talk about one man in particular who left it all out on the field in his senior season. But at the end of the day, in my books, it was Brady Bye. And I think just the way he stepped up, the way he guided the ship, the way, even from last year and talking to him prior to the playoffs, he said, listen, we've got a bitter taste in our mouth. We finished first in the division in 2024 and got swept by Moose Jaw. So we really needed to rally the troops a little bit. And you had a lot of those same troops up until mid-July, and then half that, some of those big pieces leave, and he stays there and does that. And I think the other piece to the puzzle is it's not just an offensive award. You think about what he did in managing that pitching staff. And it was interesting watching up close was how much he was communicating with his pitchers, making sure that, hey, don't worry about that pitch. You got the next one. Like there's that constant banter that you need out of a catcher. Kind of put me to mind of Pat Borders in 1992 that way. Was, yeah, the offensive numbers were good, but it was really that overall play that really set him out in my eyes.
Yeah, the debate, though, did come in with Aiden Page specifically. And let's throw up the board for Aiden Page. First off, huge shout out to Kelly Lewick for coming up with the headline, Big Stage, Big Page. But Aiden Page, to me, the reason I thought he was in the discussion, and of course he was in the discussion, was I don't think the Red Sox get to the finals without Aiden Page's pitching performances in the first couple of rounds. I think he did some really big stuff against the Berries specifically, and then to get to Game 3, of course, or in Game 3, I guess, for the Sox. I just thought he was lights out, and he pitched some really important innings, and not just that, Joe. It wasn't just like he came out there and closed out the game with a three out inning. It was 3-4 innings at a time that he was out there, just really eating some innings and really shutting teams down. Look at his ERA over his last 5 showings, 0.09. That's impressive. So. That was the only thing I thought that was. I just wanted to give a huge shout out to Aiden Page. Maybe if it was a co-MVP, I think it would go to the two players. Obviously, Brady Bye. I don't think without either one, they don't get to where they got. They don't win the championship. So that's the way I look at it. But a good discussion and a really interesting debate. But I guess final thoughts on the Red Sox and Sylvan Lake Gulls. A big shout out to all of them as well. They had such a great season. One of the hottest teams we mentioned in our championship preview. After that Saskatchewan road trip where things kind of went haywire, they really buckled in and really played well. Probably the best team in the second half of the season.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And to close the book on Regina real quickly and the Aiden Page conversation, it was funny talking to guys. I did the post game broadcast and was interviewing some of the guys and had the row of players and coaches and Al Simpson came by as well. And I had a joke with Aiden Page. I said, "How's that arm feeling? Like, is it it's just kind of dangling there at this point, right?" Because there was a play in the sixth inning where he tried to catch a ball. And it led to a pretty controversial issue that everybody's talked about. We won't rehash it, but um, he came out of that and he's shaking his arm. And I was like, I don't, he actually, I think, walked the next batter on four straight pitches. And he's sitting there shaking his hand, shaking his hand, shaking his hand. You're going, okay, is this guy going to be able to finish this out? And to his credit, he said, nope, you're not taking me out until, somebody's going to have to take me out on a stretcher kind of thing. And so we joked about it a little bit during the broadcast about how he gutted that one out. So kudos to Aiden Page for sure. And to your point, I think watching when Kevin Cavani made the announcement about who's going to be MVP, there were a couple of guys getting their shoulders rubbed, and it was Aiden Page and Brady Bye. So I think even the players were sort of like, okay, this is going to come down to one or two guys, and they were ecstatic no matter who was getting it this year. So kudos there. On the
Yeah.
Sylvan Lake front, again, kudos to everybody in that organization because that's not an easy thing to deal with. You go into game two with home field advantage thinking, hey, we can close this out in the next game or two. And just the sheer heartbreak, you could feel it. It was palpable in the building after game two, and even more so in game three. This is the first championship since 2021 where the road team clinched the championship. So we didn't see that in any of the previous three in Okotoks because they were all won on home turf. This one, you could feel the emotion from everybody involved, and the fan base there, packed house. Full credit to the Gulls fans because they made it standing room only, and even then, you're kind of shoulder to shoulder with your best friend, kind of thing, for both games. So everybody showed out, and it led to again a very dramatic, very epic three-game series.
Yeah, it really was. And the best part about it for us here in Regina is that ballpark in Sylvan Lake. To me, as I was looking at it, looking at pictures of the Red Sox, posted a couple pictures of the dugouts, how beautiful they are,
Mhm.
the seating, how beautiful it is. I bet Regina Red Sox ownership is like, hey, there's our blueprint, there's our model, there's our template for a new stadium here. Just saying. I'm sure we'll talk about that later on in the show a little bit more too. But it is a great ballpark. What a perfect setting, a perfect setup in terms of how it looks and everything about it. So yeah, huge shout out to Gulls Field, huge shout out to everybody with Sylvan Lake. A great season, and it was a great way for the season to wrap up. Let's just have a look at that last graphic we put up there really quickly, guys. Against all odds, the Red Sox coming through this playoff run, obviously coming into the playoffs basically 500. Yes, their offense was pretty prolific, runs against kind of middle of the pack. But the biggest storyline with them was their roster turnover. We talked about it in the preview show of the championship preview. They lost 6 of their best players basically midway through the season. And the turnover, the replacements that came in, and the guys who stepped up who were already there, it goes a really long way to just showing how important this, not important, how impressive, I mean, this playoff run was for the Red Sox. And the pitching was a big part of it. But Joe, do you want to just kind of talk about some of the guys who stepped up for the Sox after that roster turnover happened, and some of the new guys who came in? Ian Montz was one of the new guys. He led the league in playoff home runs. So guys like that really stepped up.
I looked at Ian Montz. Zaid Brannigan was another name that kind of came to mind as a guy. He had a couple of home runs in big moments to help pad leads and that kind of stuff. I really like the play of Justin Simard, who was the one who had the 2 strikes on him in game 2 and managed to get a single and plate a couple to get the ball rolling there. It was just kind of that team effort. And again, it was interesting going into game 2 because you sit there as the broadcaster going, okay, what are the possibilities here, and who's going to be playoff MVP if Regina wins? Who's going to be playoff MVP if Sylvan wins? And there were multiple choices on both sides, and I think that's maybe something that a lot of teams are going to have to look at going into 2026 is who's going to put together the best overall roster and guys who are going to step up in the big moments and guys who are going to be ready to play pivotal pieces at maybe not the expected times kind of thing. And so there was really that it felt like these were 2 good, great overall teams versus, hey, we've got a star-studded roster as an example. And so that's where it kind of set up for me. I was really impressed by Regina just in terms of one of the points on that graphic. Road Warriors. They were 5-0 on the road, one against Medicine Hat, 2 wins in Saskatoon, and 2 wins in Sylvan Lake. That's not easy to do. Like if you go 500 on road turf, you should be fine. That's usually fine. But that was, I think, a deciding factor in all of these series is the fact that they were able to go into enemy territory and really take the bull by the horns and go. This is, and actually, it was funny. Raphael Jackson actually mentioned it. They had a saying, and I don't remember it off the top of my head, but it was basically, we're going to go into your home turf and we're going to take your home turf.
Yeah, and they did just that. Obviously, winning a bunch of games on the road. What a great and you know what I texted. This is the last. If you can put that graphic up one more time, guys. Sorry, the very last point on that graphic is grit and grind. And I'm just gonna read. I'm just gonna read what I texted Gary Brotzel after the night that they won. And I just said it was like midnight, and I texted him because I knew he'd be. I knew they'd still be going, and I said, "Congrats on all the hard work, paying off with the big win, Gary." And his first words were, "Thanks, gritty and effort." That's all he said, gritty and effort, and it was just the perfect kind of summary, I think, of this Red Sox championship team. So congrats one more time to everybody involved with the Red Sox, and it's going to be an interesting offseason, I think. For a lot of reasons. And to talk a little bit more about that offseason and just recap the season a little bit more as well, let's bring in the president of the WCBL, and that is Kevin Kavami. Kevin, thanks for joining us today. Of course, obviously the season is behind us now. The Regina Red Sox crowned champions, and we kind of talked about it in the first segment, Kevin, but against all odds, you might say. We'll start with the regular season and just the season as a whole, though. Let's start there, and just the pretty successful season overall. Obviously, some interesting things going on throughout the summer, but that always happens. But generally, the partners, the sponsors, I think it all went pretty well for you guys.
Yeah, no, it was another successful season for the league. Weather aside, we certainly had our share of issues with the weather that kept us moving and keeping umpires moving around the provinces and paying attention to what the latest forecast is with smoke and thunderstorms and such. But the teams and the facility people did an incredible job to get all the games in that we got in, and a great run in the playoffs. Some really dramatic games, including the championship series, was like riveting from start to finish. And you have to think that the sponsors and the fans are going to be thrilled with the season we just finished. So on to 2026.
Reflecting on that playoff run, Kevin, what stood out to you, especially from a Regina perspective, but even from a Sylvan Lake perspective? I mean, these two teams just put on an absolute dynamite show.
Yeah, the championship series was by far, outstanding as far as the playoffs went. Extra innings in the first game, down to your last strike in the second game from the series being over in 2. To a really back and forth game 3 that could have went either way, and even the final ball that was hit to center field was hit fairly well, and if it had been in a different spot in the outfield, would have dropped, and they might have won the game with a double in the gap. So that's how close this series was.
Yeah, and I guess it kind of leads into a really interesting discussion now, because obviously the big news kind of early on in the season was the Regina Red Sox new ownership group coming into next season. But what a way to kind of kick off an ownership with a championship that was a little unexpected, let's be honest. Not many people counted the Red Sox as maybe a favorite to win heading into the playoffs, at least, and they were able to pull it off. But from your perspective as the league president, I mean, it must be pretty good timing, I'll say, for the ownership group to come in at this moment in time.
Do that, they have a pretty high bar to meet now.
Yeah, exactly.
That was my words to Al Simpson on Saturday night there in Sylvan. I whispered in his ear on the field there that kind of sets the bar pretty high for next year. But they've got to be thrilled coming into a environment like that. Like you're right, nobody saw it coming. I mean, the the geniuses with the power rankings in the league didn't see it coming. I didn't see it coming. Maybe only the Regina Red Sox saw it coming. And kudos to them. And Rai Patakis, he was just very emotional on Saturday night. He'd been involved with the league. He went back to the previous iteration in Saskatchewan for years, and he held that together for a couple of years by himself. And he was very disappointed when he had to say that the Yellow Jackets could no longer be a partner in this league. They didn't have the support there, and so he ended up getting tied with the Red Sox for the last number of years, and just a very good story. He had to be in two places at once on Saturday night, and he chose the ball game over being inducted into the Saskatchewan Hall of Fame. So that was just telling in itself. So just great storylines as well to cap the season off. But that's the WCBL for you. Anybody can beat anybody on any given night.
Speaking of beating everybody, I got to say the Saskatoon Berries did a pretty good job of doing that through the course of the season, but couldn't replicate that in the playoffs, Kevin. And they were named the All-Star Game hosts for 2026. They've got a lot of momentum in the first couple of years there. How impressed are you with what they've been able to build in a short amount of time?
Well, I think they've shown a blueprint that is new to the league now, where your multi-sports franchises owned by the same organization can utilize resources in a very efficient fashion to make sure that all of your franchises within your organization get service to the level that they expected to get service by. And talented staff, talented management, passionate ownership, all of that put right down to the coaching staffs that they put on the field, and their vision of Cairns Field, their vision of the berry patch and the utilizing of the berries name and such things has just been a home run from start to finish. And we can't wait to see the All-Star Game next year, as you mentioned, Joe. It's just going to be a baseball event not to be missed.
One thing I know that a lot of fans are curious about, Kevin, that throughout the summer it was kind of an ongoing thing, and me and Joe were just chatting about it before we started recording here today, but Energy City, the Cactus Rats. Obviously a lot of excitement coming into the year. There was a lot of optimism, especially talking to Pat Cassidy, a lot of optimism there that things were going to go well with the stadium and everything was going to get done in time for some games. Didn't quite go that way, but there was still a little bit of optimism. Again, talking to Pat Cassidy, very optimistic guy, going into next year. So can you give us a little bit of an update just from the league's perspective on where we all sit with Energy City going into at least the offseason to start with?
Well, I think suffice it to say we've got a number of the franchises in the league that would like to get some clear, straight answers from Pat and the organization there in Spruce Grove. Obviously, the stadium didn't get as far as he had hoped. It had a lot of work done on it. We just about played a game on it in July, but before rain hit again. The famous word all summer. But there was other little things that needed to be done as well to make sure that is playable for next year. Obviously, the city of Spruce Grove has their regulators and their people that do development permits and that are going to make sure that the facility is going to be top notch and safe. Just hope that Pat can get her done here over the winter and put a product on the field that will be successful. I mean, he had the race for fourth place in the West was dramatic as well. I mean, and none of those teams are slouches. I'm telling you that straight up. Like the Fort McMurray and Brooks and Energy City was a race to the finish line right at the end, and there was some decisive games that happened, and Brooks walked into Fort McMurray's home there the second last week of the season, took 3 or 4 from there, and that was, I think, the telling thing that earned Brooks fourth spot in the league and cost probably Fort McMurray their opportunity to be in the playoffs this year, that series itself. So I think Energy City can be a successful team. They've got to have a home. That it was just stressful on all the teams in the league to deal with a traveling team that was hoping to open at home at some point, and they kept the dream there all season long, but it created a huge amount of problems on the back end, and we can't go through that again.
Speaking of problems and scheduling, you've alluded to it a couple of times. Mother Nature did her darned best to make sure that you were pulling your hair out at every night trying to figure out, okay, can we squeeze a game in here, there, everywhere? 30 plus is what I counted: cancellations, postponements, delays because of whether it be smoke or rain. Talk about the challenges first off.
That was
Second,
wasn't it?
and then beyond that is, you change? Does that change the conversation a little bit during the off season about, hey, do we need to make some changes or adjustments to our cancellation policies, as an example, or our postponement policies?
There may be a tweak here and there. It really isn't that difficult. It really is a simple process. We only had one incident in the league this year that really created some animosity over the cancellation or the play policy. And part of it is the rules of baseball, and you don't want to change the rules of baseball. And I think there's going to have to be some discussions with the governors in the off season about what they expect a field of play to look like when it's played on, what they really want to do with smoke. We set a certain standard that if the air quality goes above that rating, then we don't play the game until it comes down. And we had to postpone 2 games over that this year. So you got rain happening in one place, and you got the other venue getting smoked out. So it was challenging for sure. But I think you also have to look at it from a logical standpoint. And I had this conversation with one of the governors, is that you may not see the smoke, the air quality, the particles in the air, and that are going to cause health issues. But if the air quality index tells you they're there, they're there. So do you really want to mess with people by having them out in that air quality and find out 10, 15 years down the road that being out in that air quality caused them health issues? So there's those type of things that the rain and slipping on a wet field could hurt your ankle. But you can do that in playing on a dry field. Hey, Clark.
Yeah, tell me about it. Nobody can see it, Kevin, but underneath this desk, I got a leg brace on.
That was not scripted. That just happened.
That was perfect. You nailed it. No, yeah, it can happen at any time, but like you said, you don't want to add to the chances of it happening. So of course, there's all of that.
Exactly.
I think, Kevin, with that in mind, I'm sure that there will be some spirited governors meetings over the off season. But what are, for the league itself, for the WCBL, what are some things, maybe positive things, and some good things you're looking forward to talking about in the off season going into next year? I know one thing, because I'm in Regina, one thing that's on our minds here is the ownership group gets finalized coming up shortly. It's a little bit in the future, but not too long, not too far in the distance. So I know that's one thing. Maybe you can talk on that first. But what are some of the other things as well that you guys are really looking forward to working on in the off season?
Well, I really think that we want to button down our social media thing, policies and stuff throughout the league. I think all of the teams need to be on side with that. I think all the teams will be on side with that. So whether we're promoting the new ownership group in Regina and the dream of what's going to come of that with the Red Sox and facilities around the Red Sox in Regina over the coming years, which I hope is really positive news in the near future. To new franchises, mean, I'm going to say Airdrie before Joe does, but they would be a welcome addition and continue to work on that. Or other locations around that, we'd like to, stay stable at 12 franchises. There is some work to do with some of the smaller franchises, and maybe there's some opportunities from what has happened to say, hey, let's tweak it a bit with ways to work with the smaller franchises, so that if the major franchises or the ones that are drawing the bigger attendance right now want to do something that can be costly, maybe there's a way we share the burden for the ones that don't have the resources to do that. So I think a team effort on the governor's side is going to be a very much on the agenda for the off season as well. Continue to grow our corporate sponsorship is going to be prominent. We've got a good number already, but it needs to continue to grow. I think that the Flow Sports experiment was a big success this year, with all the games being on Flow. I know I've talked to them even as late as a week ago, and they said our league had incredible numbers as far as the amount of time we were up during the year, not counting game one of the championship series, which was really unfortunate. But I guarantee you the Regina will have that fixed for next year. That was just an internet problem that happened at the stadium that night, and there was no immediate fix. So your live telecast of the TD game one was a bit distorted at times, I guess, or cutting in and out. So, but generally, the Flow Sports experiment was wonderful. Lots of commercials, lots of opportunity to get more commercials on the broadcast. Some of the teams upped their game even more than what other ones did, and I think the opportunity to continue to showcase the league on webcasting is going to be a important thing. So there's never a shortage of work to do.
Yeah, All-Star game in Saskatoon next year. We mentioned that already, so that's an exciting one as well. Joe was big on this one, and I don't know, Joe, if you're going to ask this question or not before we end this, but the I can't say the word. Me and Joe were joking about this before, but the Rural Roots Classic. That was. It seemed like it went really, really well this year. Is that in the plans again for next year?
You weren't behind the scenes of it, but anyways, that's.
I was trying to make it all sound good. Yeah, it all went really, really well.
The presentation and the day of the game and everything, it was perfect. It was. You can't give Oyen enough credit for the work they did on that field, and it just looked magnificent for the game itself. The Gulls and Bulls put on quite a show that day. What was it, Joe? 31 runs or something in the end?
Yeah.
Maybe more. I don't know. I lost track somewhere. But yeah, it was. It certainly was incredible to get that off the ground. And I'm excited to announce that we have named a chairperson for the Rural Roots Exploratory Committee. Akil Samuel from the Civil Neck Gulls is taking that role on, and we're going to fill that with some other members of the committee. We've drafted Joe McFarland to be on that committee.
Voluntold, I like it.
Breaking news.
Breaking news. There you go. No, we talked about that on Saturday in Sylvan Lake, and I was supposed to ask him, but I thought voluntold was a better way to go. All he does is talk about this stuff, so let's make him do some work.
Yep.
And come up with some communities around Alberta and Saskatchewan, including North Battleford, and see where we go and what kind of facilities and communities will embrace the idea and bring the WCBL to their communities for a day or night in 2026. So excited about that too. So good. Thanks for bringing that up.
for sure. Joe, do you want to ask anything else here before we let Kevin go?
I was just gonna say one more for you, and then I'm done. I asked this of you after Game 2 on the field. How impressed are you with the fan turnout this season? Because whether it's the playoffs, the regular season, yeah, there were rainouts. Yeah, the weather wasn't the best. We didn't see a lot of 30-degree temperatures, but man, they came out in droves all season long.
Yeah, we certainly have some great communities that have embraced the WCBL. It is led by the Okotoks Dogs, and Siemens Stadium. When it was created, they've been a phenomenal partner in the league for since 2007 when Siemens Stadium opened. Can you believe that they're going to have their 20th year in Siemens Stadium next year? That's incredible in itself. It still looks like a new fancy new toy when you go there, and they keep adding to it. So, but then you add on the Saskatoon. I mentioned Ryan in Saskatoon before. Well, they couldn't draw a squat in Saskatoon back in 2010 to 14, 200-300 people, and here come the Saskatoon Berries, and they're packing the same field. They've done a few upgrades in that with it, but just amazing amount of marketing and that they've done there. Sylvan, of course, is been great. Medicine Hat, since their renovation, has had a great show, and then Regina. So suddenly, Regina is on fire as far as getting fans out. Like record attendance in the the divisional final, and the championship series. You can't say enough about them. And the same thing happened in Moose Jaw the last couple of times the championship series ran through Moose Jaw. They packed that Ross Wells, and the weird thing, I talked about Fort McMurray a little bit with their field, and you go on Flow, and those seats don't have a lot of people in them, sometimes right behind home plate. And Fort McMurray's telling me they had a great year this year, and it was all about their suites upstairs. Well, we don't see it on camera, the suites upstairs, and all the people having fun up there. So, I mean, even though you don't see it on there, they're even in Fort McMurray, they're really happy with where they're at. I think that some of the other clubs need to step it up and support their local teams, because it shows dividends what can happen when you get behind your team and they make a run, or they have events and put on a great show for the community, and the kids especially in the community.
Well, that's so good to hear that, generally across the league, things went really, really well this year, Kevin. So I'm going to, on behalf of everybody here and involved in the show, I'll say congrats to you. I know it's not all, I know you won't take a whole lot of credit for all of it, but I know you're a big part of it. So congrats, Kevin, on a great season, and appreciate you joining us here today.
Yeah, well, thanks to you guys for everything you did all year long. It was a brand new venture that we undertook, and I think the WCBL got a lot of coverage that they've never had before. And thanks to you guys at IKS, Alberta Dugout Stories, Saskatchewan Dugout Stories, that are partners with us and make us better because of your involvement. So thank you.
Well, appreciate it. We look forward to bringing it back and doing it all again in, what is it, Joe, 9 months, 10 months? We'll do it again. Thanks, Kevin, for joining us today.
You guys take care.
All right. There it is. Kevin Kavami, president of the WCBL. El Presidente, as you call it. The WCBL Presidente. I love that. But, Joe, as we kind of wrap up the show now, I guess we talked about a lot of this with Kevin, but just a few things, kind of burning questions, we're going to call it, as we head into the offseason. And I'll throw these to you, and you can kind of just throw a few thoughts my way, and we'll go back and forth. But we'll start, Kevin mentioned it, but the Energy City Cactus Rats, I think, is first and foremost on a lot of fans' minds, especially in Spruce Grove, because I know that there was a lot of fans that were looking forward to hopefully having some ball there this summer, and it just didn't work out for whatever reason. But what are your thoughts, I guess, after hearing from Kevin there on Energy City going into the offseason?
Yeah, I get the sense he mentioned the fact that the other governors have some questions. So there's going to be an ask of some pure honesty, maybe of Pat Cassidy around the table as far as where they're at, what they need to do to get accomplished. Because like Kevin said, I don't think there's a big appetite around the league to be hosting Energy City home games in Sylvan or Brooks or Okotoks or Fort Max. So that's going to be a really big point of conversation, I think, in this offseason, is especially because we're entering now what's typically a colder part of the year. So how much construction needs to happen, how much is still to happen, or how much has been done, what can be done during the winter, as an example. Was the turf that they did have in place, was that the turf, or do they need an actual set of turf? There's a lot of questions that I think are going to be asked around the Board of Governors table in a couple of months' time.
I think you're a Simpsons guy, Joe, just getting the vibes from you. I think you're a Simpsons guy. They should just put a dome over the whole stadium for the whole winter and just finish it. Just get it done.
There you go.
There you go.
I don't. Let's put a dome over the entire Western Canada,
Yeah.
and then we're good.
I mean, after we talked about 33 plus or whatever it was, rain outs, weather outs, whatever you want to call them. Yeah, maybe that's a good idea. The Regina Red Sox, we talked about their success, obviously, on the field this year, but off the field in the offseason. There's some big news. Obviously, we talked about it a lot this season, but the new ownership group, where are they at in that process?
Yeah, I think the biggest question mark going into the offseason is, hey, are we able to speed up the process in getting the new stadium approved? Right? Because that's been the biggest thing. Is I know in talking to Al Simpson a couple of seasons ago, and he's very optimistic about, like, hey, if we can get all of the fundraising in place, then we're talking about opening in 2027 as an example. And then things kind of went silent because I think they were working on this deal with Queen City Sports and Entertainment. Now, where does Queen City Sports and Entertainment take this is kind of the question. And I think there's going to be a few people around the table who are going to say, hey, can we speed this up at all? Is this going to be an issue for City Council in Regina, as an example? Do we think we can get council buy-in? All those kinds of pieces. So I'm optimistic on that front that they'll be able to get some answers pretty quickly and maybe be able to break ground soon. The question, because I think they've all everybody's sort of in agreement about the location. Everybody's sort of in agreement about what the scope of the project is. It's just a matter of actually making sure they've got the dollars and cents to make it work.
Right. And I think the biggest thing that people need to remember, too, is for years and years and years and years, this Red Sox organization was being operated by some very hardworking and dedicated, I'll call them volunteers, but really they put a lot of their own time and money and stuff into this project. So volunteers, I think, is almost not a good enough word for what those people were doing, all the people behind the scenes. But now they have a little bit of backing. They have that corporate kind of looming figure behind them now with Queen City Sports and Entertainment, which is run and operated by the Brandt group of companies, and that's a power player, especially in the city right now. There's some big things going on. So I think, like you said, can they maybe say, let's speed this process up? Can we get a couple things approved? Can we get this? Can we get this? Maybe they have a little bit more kind of support and push behind that now, and I'll be very on top of that over the offseason. I'll promise you that. I've been hoping for a new stadium here in Regina for a decade almost now, at least. So it's time, and we'll see how that all goes. But I love the process, and I love where they're going. I love the progress, I should say. But speaking of progress and things going really well, the Saskatoon Berries hosting the All-Star Game next year. Big season this year. A lot of momentum in the community. Talk to me about the Berries going into the offseason.
I think it was really telling that on, I think it was Monday morning, they've posted to social media a quote from Joe Carnahan about how awesome it is to play in Saskatoon. The game is already on. There is no break when it comes to the recruiting side of things. And mark my words, Joe Carnahan, who's a proven winner in this league, has his sights set on making sure what happened the last 2 years doesn't happen a third time around, and that is losing in the division final. So they're going to be working on getting some of the pieces that they've had in place over the last couple of years. They'll have to deal with maybe some guys leaving, and really recruiting some power bats, some power. I think the one thing that maybe they got exposed in during the playoffs was pitching depth. I thought, some of the guys who maybe were their key arms during the season were starting to wear down by the end. So can you make sure to have a couple of more extra arms to keep guys a little bit more fresh so that their stuff is stuffing kind of thing come playoff time? So that's one of the things I'm looking forward to, is seeing what kind of recruiting class Joe Carnahan has in store for 2026.
That's that phrase, I think, is going to have to be utilized more often. When the stuff is stuffing, I like it. I think that's going to be something I use a lot going forward. the coaching carousel. There's always a little bit of changes here and there. Maybe we don't know the full extent of it, but there already has been at least one full announcement. I'm sure there might be a couple more, but what are you hearing on the coaching side of things across the league?
Well, the biggest question mark, and I don't think it's going to take them very long to make a decision, is going to be the Sylvan Lake Gulls.
Right.
For the first time in their existence, they are on the hunt for a new head coach. And I'm curious to see whether or not it's going to be a hire from within, which we saw with Ryan Reed in Medicine Hat, which was announced yesterday, being Monday. In that they've promoted him up to becoming head coach. Is Matt Hape, is Wyatt McKnight the next Jason Chatwood? Jason, of course, in case you missed the news, he's going to be spending some more time with family. His kids are starting to get into that age where they can start doing, after school activities like baseball and other sports and other things like that. So he's taken that step back. He's still going to be very much involved in the recruiting process, which is good news for Gulls fans who are looking to have some continuity, because I think that's one of the biggest challenges when you have that carousel of coaches year after year after years. You don't necessarily have the same veterans returning year after year after year. The teams that have that are the ones that are doing well, right? Okotoks, Sylvan, Saskatoon, you know what you're getting. Regina's got Rye now. Like there's been some continuity, but I think some of the smaller teams would like to see some more long-term coaching come into play, and it's going to start, I think, with Sylvan Lake and seeing what their vision is for coach number 2 in that organization's history.
Yeah, exactly. And finally, the playoff format. Obviously, it kind of came into fruition in the finals and only the finals, but maybe there's something there, Joe. What are your thoughts on that?
I like playing devil's advocate. I don't know if anyone has noticed this yet, but I like, pushing some buttons. And it was interesting to see the question marks when it was found that it was going to be Regina and Sylvan Lake. And then the league announced, hey, it's going to be a 1-2 format. In the last 3 years, it's been 1-1-1, which means the top seeded team gets games 1 and 3, and the lower seed gets game 2. Because of the distance between Regina and Sylvan Lake, it goes to a 1-2 format. So you had Regina at home for game 1 and Sylvan in games 2 and 3. I think, and I have no vote around the table. The governors can tell me, they'll probably text me after they watch this and go, that's just the dumbest thing I've ever heard. But I wouldn't mind seeing that become the regular. And the reason for it is, if I'm a player, if I'm a coach, if I'm an organization, I want to win on home turf. I want that opportunity to do something for the fans. And you could really tell it, as much as they were the lower seed in that Okotoks series, Sylvan Lake took a lot of pride in being able to beat the Dogs at home. They wanted that opportunity to really show up for their team. And I think that kind of permeated a little bit into the final, because now all of a sudden Sylvan's got that opportunity to end it at home. Does it put a little bit more pressure on the hometown team? For sure it does. All you need to do is look at that final and the added stress of, okay, can we do this? You're gripping the stick a little bit harder if you're using hockey terms. I still think the 1-2 format is a good way, not just for the fans, but also for travel costs, for the overall travel that you have in the league. I think it's just an overall win. We'll see if the league decides to take me up on that offer, though.
I'm on your team, for the record. I also like that format, especially when it's just the 3 games. It doesn't really make sense to give, because game 2 is always going to be an elimination game, regardless. So it doesn't, I've thought this for a while, it doesn't make sense to give the lower seed the first elimination game. In this regard, in a 7-game series, it's a bit different, obviously, because there's more opportunities for things to happen in the first 3 games leading up to game 4. The chances of a game 4 being an elimination. Anyway, we're getting into the deep weeds here, but I think everyone knows what I'm saying. I personally love that idea. I think that's a good one, which we'll see. I think that I'd love to see them talk about it. We'll see what happens there, though. So it should be an interesting offseason regardless, for those reasons that we just talked about, and a few things that Kevin mentioned as well. I'm sure, like we said, kind of there's going to be some spirited governors meetings, I'm sure, and some emails exchanged, I'm sure. But generally, I think we can all take away from this season that I think it was a pretty good success, pretty great success, and something to really build off of. I think that's another thing that maybe people don't really think about. They think about each season as kind of a one-off, but this is a great place. The last couple seasons have been building to this, and I think this is a great place to build from there and really go. bigger and bigger. So Joe, appreciate you, all the stuff you do, not just on this show, across the board, everywhere, on the field, in the stands, in the booths, and of course joining me here on the show. Appreciate you all season long, and really excited to see where this offseason takes us into next season.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a pleasure, Mark. Mark.
We're close.
Man, oh,
We're
man.
close.
It was one of those. It's been one of those seasons, right?
Yeah.
I got to say, Clark, it's been an honor and a privilege to be a part of this, and it's just been an honor and privilege to bring the stories of the league to everybody, whether it's through this show, through the broadcast, that kind of stuff. It doesn't happen without the fine crew that we have behind the scenes as well. So a big shout out to everybody. And like you said, it was another great year. As much as there were some things that happened during the course of the season, weather being the biggest one. Overall, to your point, it's a matter of building those blocks and keep that interest going, because I'm a big believer in if you can see it, you can be it. And for a lot of young fans out there who are watching games this summer, they now have dreams of one day playing in the WCBL, and it's because of the incredible work that goes in behind the scenes and out on the field across this great league. So kudos to everybody involved.
There you go. Love that. Love that. And I echo that sentiment as well. And it's going to be a great time to reflect over the offseason and work on even bigger things for next year. Joe, thank you so much. For everybody in the back, Bryce, Steven, throughout the season, our designer, Kelly, Jordan, who jumped in a few times, everybody here at IKS, thank you guys for everything you guys do back there. Thank you, Joe, for joining me. Thanks to Kevin for joining us today. One more big shout out for Lethbridge Bulls player Carter Clearhout. I just got to give him one more shout out because he's probably listening, and I don't want to disappoint him. Thanks for a great season, everybody. It's been great. Please subscribe to that YouTube channel. We got to get those numbers up. We'll keep growing it over the off season, and we'll see you again when the time comes. But until then, bye for now.
Brought it back. This is a fucking dream. This is
Awesome. The best time I've ever had in my life. Hey, we jammed. Hey, 3-3 on 3, 1, 2, 3. 3-3.
There's no crying in baseball!
Just a bit outside. He tried the corner and missed.
That'll do it.